Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'm Javier Larrosa, a member of the support team of GeneXus. I'll talk about GIS, Geography and Information Technology. This is the promotional video of GIS Day created by National Geographic, supported by a group of companies and organizations. The objective is to spread geography, the GIS systems worldwide. Why? Because geography is adjacent to other areas of action. It's as broad as information technology, society, health, information, politics. We're surrounded by geography, and geography can help us in many different ways. This is a picture taken this year in a meeting between presidents of Mercosur and the Russian president. And Mr. Mujica wanted to talk about a deep water port, and he opened a map. It was very hard for him to manipulate the map to show President Putin where the port was to be located. Why not have a digital device to show this? This is why GIS is so important. A teacher once told us that any map is a GIS or a part of GIS, but a GIS is much more than that. Talking about the action plan, the action field of geography, this gentleman initiated what we know as GIS today. He's not a geographer, not a geologist. He's a physician, John Snow. In 1854, during a cholera epidemic in London, this gentleman did the following. He found a map of Soho in London, and with a dot, he marked all the patients he treated who died of cholera. With a cross, he marked all the wells where they took the water from. He thought that cholera was not satanic, sent by Satan, but an epidemic. And John Snow is known as the father of epidemiology. For many, he started what we call the geographic method today, and GIS is based precisely on that. You enter geographic information, you analyze it, you edit this information, and you draw conclusions. This is what GIS is doing today. But it took about a century to have the first GIS, which is the Geographic Information of Canada, and Tomlinson created this in Canada. Then over the years, in the 80s and 90s, we saw the advent of many different types of software by those companies who are the leaders of GIS. As from the 21st century, GIS moved into the internet. This is the Map It Minneapolis. This is for the city of Minneapolis in the US, the city of the lakes, as they call it. The portal of the local government is offering a very broad GIS with lots of maps and graphs, information where citizens living there can enter data, edit data, visualize data, and draw conclusions. I'll show you some which are very interesting. This was presented this year in the Users Conference. This was one of the success cases of the GIS product they have. Something very basic, for example, very necessary, is a map, an administrative map, the neighborhoods in the city of Minneapolis. As you see, the neighborhoods have different colors because they do a survey of the trees in the city. So if you are a citizen and enter a map, you click on a specific tree and you can see when it was planted, what sort of tree it is. It has a link with a forestry database that talks about the value of that tree for the city. It also tells me whether the tree is harmed, old, affected. So you draw a report that tells you when to replant or change the tree. Then you do a merge and you get another map, which is an administrative map on the basis of levels of green present in each neighborhood. And this has an incidence in the price of real estate. This is also very interesting. They are fostering the use of solar energy. So people have to install panel cells. And so you can enter the roof of your own house and estimate the changes if you install a solar panel. And you can install it in different places. They give you advice. They help you. This red thing is probably a skyscraper that has a better performance. And you can put layer upon layer to measure the levels of radiation and so on. Finally, I would like to show you what happens with claims. The 311, the frequent calls, are also controlled on a map. You can zoom in or zoom out and see in each area the level of claims received by them. They have a portal. This is the portal of the bad dogs, as it is called. If a dog is dangerous, the dog attacked someone, you put it on the map and you publish this. We would call it a scratcher here in Uruguay, but this is a way of drawing the attention to the owners of the dogs so that they are more careful. They seem to do the same with people who don't behave very nicely. Maybe in the South we are far from this kind of thing, but it's interesting nevertheless. So today, I would like to connect GeneXus to GIS. GeneXus is not GIS and will never be a GIS. But as GIS move into the internet, there are more things we can integrate to. There are many providers of web maps. We can visualize, we have lots of APIs, we have services, we have web map services and web feature services. The web map services integrate to GIS, but the web feature services are many interfaces, and we can use those services supported by a GIS with relevant information. In addition, with things we know already, there are devices with very accurate GPS. We can develop location-based services, applications based on the position. And we've seen this in former events. So now I'm going to show you 3 applications, 3 main courses, ready-made applications developed with GeneXus. The 3 of them have geography as the main component or ingredient. I think that, as my title said, it's the strawberry on the cake. we can enhance the application by adding components that will surprise the customer. I can also develop a new range of applications that are not many today, but we have a new market, and we can also integrate to other communities. I will show you then the 3 applications, and I will show you how they developed, what recipe was used, what ingredients were incorporated. And then I'll talk about what GeneXus is doing around GIS and geography. So, starting with the 3 applications, the first is an application from Sebastián del Río. It's called Kilometer 40. It's a game, and the application, Sebastián likes motorbikes, and the application has a point of departure, like the Radisson Hotel. I turn it on, I go around, and when I get to the end, I have the whole route loaded into my application. Then I get a ranking depending on my speed and the time consumed. The other users have this route, and they can use the same route or an alternative route to do the same thing. This has over 50 users. We have users in Dubai and other remote areas. People download them and use them with motorcycles or just walking. It's a game. The second is a web application. The first one is IBS. The second is a web application that I developed for education. It's part of a prototype. It's called Tell Me Where You Live and I'll Tell You Something. This application, based on the geographic context, will provide you with information. Let me show you. This is the application. It's web and Google Map. My application, you have data for Montevideo. You don't see it, I'm sorry. Let's see. No, I'll try again. Okay. So this is an application, a web application with Google Map. This is for the city of Montevideo. When I click here, the application gives me information about the neighborhood where I am positioned. It could be in different areas of Montevideo, and I get information about the neighborhood. And for example, it tells me the government offices, postal code, police station. I could get information on business in the area, like drugstores that are open all night, or malls. I could have statistical information. I could find out about what the political parties will get us votes in certain areas. This will help me improve my political campaign or not, or something like, well, in a given the place where I live, which soccer team should I follow? So the 3 sports are soccer, rugby, and basketball. Basketball here in Montevideo belongs to neighborhoods. What's more, the teams get the names of the neighborhoods. That gives the name to the basketball team. This is where I live. This is where I was born. And I should belong to Welcome Club. And this is my team, and I congratulate myself because it's doing very well. Now, with soccer, it's a little bit different. We have 2 main teams that go beyond the geographical barriers, though people always have a heart for a second, smaller soccer team. So I'll put the address of 2 of my friends who are Peñarol and Nacional. One is Federico Salomon. He should be a fan of Defensor Sporting, according to his neighborhood, and the other should be as well. They are not going to change. They like Peñarol and Nacional, but my application can tell In the case of Federico, who hasn't got a car yet, I could tell him the best road, find me the best road to go from your home to the nearest club. So this shows me the route, the best route from his home to the nearest club. I could do the same, for example, in the case of Alejandro. He has a car. So I said, if he wants to drive to the nearest club, this is what he can do. It shows me a circuit to go. It's a two-way circuit. Let's go back to the PPPs. It's hard to leave this screen.
Bueno, disculpen, tengo un problema técnico. Sí, lo que pasa es que no. Ahí está. Ahí.
I apologize. The final main dish is a module of Karatech application. This is for rural areas, and it has two modules. One is called OK Recorridas. I can walk around my land. I can obtain information about plant diseases, pests. It's a nice software if you're interested. There are people who are promoting this product, but I wanted to focus on the module on climate. If I enter a number, in Uruguay, you know, if I'm the owner of a land, this is registered with a number, a cadastral number. And if I use the number, I get information on climate for this specific area. I can include the latitude and longitude, and this is a good example because we have geography, but data entry does not need cartography. You enter a number and you have a weather forecast as a result. Let's move into the recipes. For Kilómetro 40, it has a single outstanding ingredient, and that is tracking. Tracking is a feature that allows me to do something with the game. There is an event when I start the route, and I said every so many meters you start adding points, you score. And then you look for something with an interface and you give it time in order to trigger that action again without taking into account the tracking of the scores. When I get to destination point, I end the tracking and I get all the scores made. This feature is very useful. There are some scenarios that are not covered. Many times they tell me, well, I would like to track, but I don't want the user to have the control of tracking. I want to do this silently. I want to spy on my employees to see where he went to in the city. This is like GPS, but GPS is very expensive. So we recommend the user of the application to know that he has the feature that can act like GPS. And there are many other ways in which you can solve this spying issue. Okay, now the other game, tell me where you live. This has more features because it's more educational. It has a click on the map. Every time I entered the map, there was a click, and the click led to something else. That's an event that is triggered, and we can call new features with interface or without interface. This is about a year old, and it also, when I click in neighborhoods, I draw a polygon. To draw the polygon on the map, I have two possibilities. One is loading an SDT, and the SDT has a list of points that shape up the polygon. And then I have a file where I have filed all the information about points, lines, and polygons that I want to draw. KML is a file that has become a standard created by people who are now doing Google Earth, and there are other formats, but KML, you can give KML the URL, and the map of the neighborhood I chose will deploy. When you do this on the map, it only showed me the polygon in the point I was interested in. But this is like a function. And if my application asks, is this point belonging to such a neighborhood or not? If not, I go to another neighborhood until I get the right neighborhood, and then I draw it. You can solve this with algorithms that are present in internet. I created it, and I can estimate whether the point is inside my polygon or not. Then for the soccer fans, I need to know the distance between 2 points. So my database should have the information about all basketball and soccer clubs in Montevideo. And when I click, I get the address where I am positioned, and I get the lowest value. That's a distance value. And it's available from SDAPI, and it's also available for web. And we will make this function available soon. And finally, the routing, which is very new. The first version came out about a month or 2 months ago, and we developed it together with 2 Mexican clients. We use Google's API direction, and we just give API direction the points that want to be tracked. And they have a parameter, and they tell us whether driving or walking, and they give us information about the streets, and they draw the solution, the map for the solution. That's only for web. The last recipe is for OKT climate. You give the number of the cadastral registry of my land, and I want to get the weather forecast for that land. So how do we do it? The Cadastre Office of Uruguay registers the ownership of land, and they provide a world features service on their GIS. They have their own GIS, and they give a service, and I give the number of the registry and the name of the province, and they give me the coordinates. For us, that's a REST plus service. It's like any other REST service, and then we use an SDT for the result. This is an additional thing that's very common in geographic issues. This is the cadastral service that gives us our coordinates in meters. The projection, it goes into a UTM system, Universal Transversal Mercator, which divides the world into quadricles. Uruguay is in quadricle 21, and the positions are in meters. The positions that I get are in meters. So through an algorithm in the internet, we estimate the geodesic coordinates that I will need to call forth a service provided by a Norwegian satellite. In fact, we have 2 calls to service and 1 algorithm, but the first part of the REST service was just to check all the registries and load the numbers in our database. So we go to the database. If we don't have it, we call the service. This is to simplify and minimize the risk of services having collapsed or if there's too much traffic on the network. Let me briefly refer to the future, what we are doing and what we hope to get soon. We are investigating spatial databases. When we talk about longitude, latitude, points, and polygons, we keep a character, and the database doesn't know what we are storing. The database has different type of data that allow us to store these locations. And this adds things like points in a polygon. The databases also include that, and we can use those features without having to program them. We are also working, as I told you, on KML, a standard to represent points, lines, and vectorial objects for maps. There are other files, the shape files, the GeoJSON, and even though there is conversion across these files, we can include new files, not just KML, but others as well. With KML, we want to export to KML. Today we are importing. With routing, we have our first version. It's only for web, but we'll see what terms and conditions in smart devices are present. We can improve this, like showing the route when I drive in one color and a different color when I return, to give information about meters covered. There's room for improvement in terms of routing. And we are also doing some research in the APIs of other providers. We have Apple Maps, Google Maps. In web, we have Yahoo also, and we have a Chinese provider of maps, which is a Chinese Google. And there are many other providers. With street mapping is very well known. It's gaining momentum, and it has very clear definition in terms of maps. We have APIs. In short, we are analyzing other providers. This is a graph, an initial table showing all the things we still need to explore. In red, to be done. In green, already done. In yellow, what we have recently started. Just to give you an idea of how much lies ahead. With what we have today, many applications can be produced. If you have any doubts, stay. The next presentation will tell us about what a group did to control the web maps. And I also invite you for November 20. Come to GIST Day. There's a lot of information over the internet, and we should integrate with this GIST Day celebrations with the power provided by GIS.